Chuck, it's great to see you today.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Chuck, you were a squadron leader in SEAL Team 6. You've worked for all the alphabet soup of U.S. intelligence and counterterrorism. You have a very strong understanding of how militaries function themselves. When you see what has gone on in the past few days with Prigozhin, namely marching on Moscow, what do you make of it?
It's incredible because to watch that drama where one black swan event was followed by another, and capped by an event that no one could have possibly foretold, which was Putin, the sitting head of state, forgiving an act of armed mutiny that was the largest threat to his power that has ever happened. No one, I think, could have seen this coming. Despite the rumblings within Wagner, I don't think anyone expected Prigozhin to storm and seize the Southern Military Command Center, and then, most improbable of all, embark on this chaotic 600-mile journey towards Moscow. And it was astounding.
And when you think of this, how do you think the Russian soldiers see this? How do they perceive what's gone on? Do you think this is going to affect how they're fighting the war?
Oh, absolutely. You look at how Prigozhin pulled this off. He gathers together 5 or perhaps even 10,000 of his fighters. They arm up, they get in a convoy, and let's just take this as a microcosm for 1 second. They roll up to the first Ministry of Defense checkpoint. And that young sentry, junior officer, whoever it is, here comes Wagner Group, locked and cocked, ready to go. That sentry faced 3 choices: open fire on the convoy and die where he stands, or get in the truck with Wagner and go to the command center and seize it, or door number 3, most likely of all, stand aside and let them pass. And that happened from the most junior private to the most senior general. They all implicitly showed agreement with Prigozhin's cause. And that should be alarming to everyone in Russia.
Can Putin recover from this, or do you think that this is a death knell?
His world has been rocked to its foundations. He doesn't know who he can trust. I think during the course of this, at the height of it, Putin was worried that he would give an order to his armed forces that they wouldn't obey. Had he outright ordered his army to converge and annihilate the Wagner columns, he's not sure that would have been obeyed. And I'll point out that only one service in his leadership role, the Air Force, they are the only people who took these mutineers under fire. And frankly, with 6 helicopters shot down and a fixed-wing command and control aircraft, they didn't do so well either.
There's a lot of argument that Putin has reason, as you point out, for paranoia. He should be afraid. Listen, the border guards were not able to stop Prigozhin's people from coming to the country. The National Guard was not able to suppress them. The military within Russia was not able to suppress them. The police were not able to suppress them. The intelligence service of Russia failed by not knowing where they were going or what was being planned. The military intelligence also failed in this. When you look at all these systemic failures in the entire Russian security services, you can argue that there's legitimate reason that Putin should be afraid that perhaps there's more coming, and he's perhaps truly gained a degree of paranoia. What do you think about that?
Well, he should be paranoid. Of course, for all of the standing aside that was done by his military, but Putin's solution was maybe the worst choice that he's ever made. By expelling Prigozhin and Wagner, he's lost 15,000 of what were probably his best fighters. He is left now with the only 2 people who can possibly command his army: Shoigu, Minister of Defense, and Chief of Staff Gerasimov. These are the 2 general officers who are proving that they cannot win the war in Ukraine. So there is a gift that Prigozhin has actually given to the people of Ukraine, and that is now Putin has been forced to hitch his wagon to the 2 most incompetent commanders, certainly in Europe. And there's one other thing that's going on here. The Wagner soldiers that followed Prigozhin into the Southern Military Command Center and then obeyed his orders to move against Moscow. All of a sudden, on Sunday, they discovered that their boss had flown away to Belarus. Prigozhin betrayed his own fighters, and they're left holding the bag. Their choices are to join the Russian military by the 1st of July. Do you honestly think that they're going to be taken into the bosom of the Ministry of Defense? There's a horrifying event that Russia perpetrated. It's called Katyn Woods, and that is where Russia assassinated 10,000 Polish officers, liquidated them. And I'm afraid that that's likely in store for the run-of-the-mill Wagner operator. That's what he faces now.
And what's going to happen then to Prigozhin himself?
If I were Prigozhin, I wouldn't eat the grilled cheese sandwich that comes up from room service. Lukashenko, the president for life of Belarus, he is Putin's puppet. He is a lickspittle, and he will do exactly what Putin tells him to do. Putin is not a person who forgets. There was an obscure defector named Colonel Skripal. He was killed using nerve gas. Litvinenko, a Russian lieutenant colonel, defected from the SFB. He was killed with polonium that scattered all across the city of London. Prigozhin is not going to be forgiven for this, folks. It isn't going to happen. And Putin's promises are worth absolutely nothing.
Chuck, I appreciate your time.